Today we're going to be talking about Biden's $25K proposal for first-time home buyers. Now there has been so much publicity about this. First it was $15K and now it's at $25 and everyone's like, oh my gosh, we're going to have money to buy a house. This is so amazing. Yeah, about that. Okay, so I haven't talked about this before because the bottom line is it has not passed yet. And even after it passes, it has to work its way through state housing agencies, and then it has to go to lenders, okay? This is not a fast process. Like, in my experience, something like this, getting to a level where you actually can use it, I would not bet on it being this year. Next year, maybe. End of this year, possibly. But this one has some hooks to it, which I think are going to be very interesting to see how they handle. And I do think that we're going to be seeing legislators on both sides argue this one out. I will fall over backwards if this thing just gets passed. And the reason is because it has some caveats which I would argue are questionable. Okay, so let's talk about, are you going to be eligible? If it stays in its current format, are you eligible? Ready? Okay, here we go. Number one, are you a first generation homeowner? You're not? Oh, you're out. You're out. Just stop watching now. You're out. If you're not a first generation homeowner, you're out. So if your parents worked 9 jobs, saved every single nickel they had so they could provide a roof over yours and your siblings' head, and their dream was to own a home, pay it off, you're out. Sorry. They don't, if you're socioeconomically disadvantaged, you're doing everything you can, you're struggling, you're barely getting by, this is your dream, you're out. Yeah, seriously, harsh, right? Harsh. So that's the thing. You have to be a first generation homeowner. Now, there is one interesting caveat to that. So if your parents did own a house, okay, and it was foreclosed on, short sale, or deed in lieu, you're back in. Yeah, so if your parents owned a house and then lost it, you're back in. You're a first generation homeowner again. Okay? But if your parents owned a house and they didn't lose it to a short sale, deed in lieu, or foreclosure, you're out again. Okay? So that's the big one, is will you fall under that parameter? Okay? Now, the next thing to this, which I think is very important, is how are we going to verify this? Is the burden of this going to fall onto the state, or is it going to fall onto the lender? Because from a lender's perspective, you know, best to my knowledge, the only way I can verify if someone's actually owned property or currently owns property is if we pull reports. And these reports require date of birth and social security. So are we going to be asking people for their parents' date of birth and social security? And what if people just put down like their aunts and uncles who don't own a house, right? And are we going to be verifying birth certificates as well? Like, how deep are we going with this, right? Because that's the thing is that if you're making $20,000 dependent on this one piece of information, how deep are we going to go to verify it? Okay? And if we want it to be thorough, I'm going to need your birth certificate. I'm going to need your parents' date of birth and social security. We're going to have to run a CoreLogic report or some sort of data verify. It's going to be deep. So how far are they going to go? That's the first question. The next thing is that in order to qualify for this program, and actually let me go back. I'm going to add one more caveat to that. So if your parents ever owned a house and didn't lose it to short sale, foreclosure, or deed in lieu, you're out. However, if you bought a house 4 years ago, you sold it and made $500,000 and you're a first generation homeowner, okay, even though you have that first house where you made a truckload of money, if it's been over 3 years, you're a first-time home buyer again. You're eligible again. That one kills me, because it's like, okay, if we're going to say you need to be a first-generation homeowner, maybe this should be your first house too. Being considered a first-time home buyer because you haven't owned a house in 3 years, you're not really a first-time home buyer. Sorry, like I know in lending we love to say you are, but you're not. So that one just kills me a little bit, because I was like, oh wow, really? Really? Because I always think about the families that I've helped over the years where they have put every cent, worked so hard to get these houses, and it just makes me really sad to know their kids are out of this program because of the sacrifices they made. Okay, so there's that. The next thing is you have to be under the area median income level. So that's pretty standard whenever we're looking at grants or down payment assistance programs. There are generally income limits. So you will need to be under the income limit. That one to me makes sense. You know, they're trying to help people out. Cool. Okay. That's for the first $20,000. Now, it's important to note this is not free money unless you live in the house for over 5 years. If you sell the house year one, like if you use this to get the house and you're like, oh, I'm going to sell it and make money. No, you're not. You're going to have to pay that whole amount back. Yes. So it gets forgiven at a 20% per year level. So if you sell year 2, you're paying a portion back. If you sell year 3, you're paying a portion back. It is not a check for $20,000, go do what you want. It is a check for $20,000. We have a clawback for the next 5 years, which, you know, they're trying to provide stability, and it's not money used to, you know, get rich quick. So if your thought was, I'm going to use this money and flip the house, not really, because they're going to take that money right back. Okay, so how do you get to the 25,000? Right? That right? Because they said 25,000 and we've only talked about 20. So what do you have to meet to get that next $5,000? Well, the next $5,000 is based on being in a economically disadvantaged class. Yes, so it's ethnicity based. So basically, if you check one of the boxes that meet an ethnicity that they determine is socioeconomically disadvantaged, you immediately get $5,000 additional. Okay? Now, if you're in one of those ethnicities that has not been selected, you have to prove that you're socioeconomically disadvantaged. Okay, I'm going to leave that one with you guys to think about and, you know, think on. Okay? So that's the overview. Is you've got 25K at play, but you have these very narrow parameters. So I thought it was important to do a video because I've started to hear people say, well, I'm going to wait till I get my money from Biden. Guys, unless you meet those parameters, don't hold your breath. If you think it's going to change and, oh, the legislators will make it open to more people, keep an eye on what's going on. You know, I would probably say Google it every 2 weeks. But as that bill stands right now, it is very narrow. Okay, very, very narrow. So I hope this video has been helpful. I will have a link to a website that I thought really laid out the bullet points clearly. And then we'll see what happens. You know, if it passes, I'll let you know on the lender side what we're doing. But I do think that the way this is written, there's a lot of burden of proof. I also do get very concerned about that extra 5K, how if you don't meet one of those ethnicities, you can try to prove that you're socioeconomically disadvantaged. I think that's going to be challenging, you know, and I pray that doesn't fall on the lenders. I don't think that's our position to figure that stuff out. You know, the thing with being a lender is we look at numbers, we look at hard numbers, and yeah, so that should be at the state level to make those types of determinations. It'll be very interesting to see how all this plays out. But if you've been watching those headlines and going, I'm going to get my money, maybe not. Thanks for watching.